this video, we'll discuss the features on Brad Pitt's face that point to profound genetic strength, natural charisma, and ideas regarding him carrying 5 elemental balance on the face, which is rare. Enjoy. For today's face reading, we're looking at Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is one of those rare people that is dominant in the 5 elements. So if you've listened to my content, I will say often to be balanced in the 5 elements from a facial perspective is uncommon, sort of rare. So I'm going to talk about the light side and the dark side of that, because any feature or elemental representation that we carry is going to have a light side and dark side, what they call the yin and yang expression of that. So we'll talk about that, and then I'm going to talk about one specific element where he has a little bit of extra juice, and I want to focus on that one because it relates to his aging, how well he looks for his age and how well he's aging, and his genetic expression. That element I want to touch on. So first and foremost, if you're new to my channel, welcome, but please go up here and watch the 5-minute crash course face reading video. That will give you terms and terminology because face reading is a branch of Chinese medicine. I might say some things that you don't understand, and I don't want you to be lost. So if you're new, go watch that. And also it gives you a buy-in factor as to why face reading is practical, relevant, and applicable. I think it's a skill that people should develop for what it's worth. So that being said, balance of the 5 elements. People hear that and oftentimes are like, cool, great, I'm balanced on all 5, I'm winning. It's like, well, yeah, but there's a caveat. Face reading theory says that if you are dominant in an elemental rhythm, you have features that associate with these elements, you're supposed to plug into the associated lifestyle rhythms within that element. So if you carry fire features, you need to engage fire rhythms to be healthy. If you have metal features, you got to engage metal. Typically, we're dominant in 2 or 3. And what that means is for your life, you've got about 2 or 3 dominant wheelhouses that you've got to explore to feel optimal, and then 2 that you have to kind of shore up the deficiencies. When you're balanced on all 5, that's a juggling act. You now have fire, earth, metal, water, and wood wheelhouses to engage to feel optimal. So that's a lot to do. That's a lot to be stimulated by, but that's kind of what comes with the game if you're going to have command of the 5 elements. And then in addition to that, people that are balanced in the 5 elements will fall out of balance very quickly, because if they're all level and one tips, the others shift proportionately. They all kind of do something together. So the thinking is when you're balanced in the 5 elements, you can fall in and out of balance very quickly. But again, you rebalance very fast as well. So these are themes I would be talking to Brad Pitt about and say, this is what the theory says. What's this look like in your life? And how the hell do you manage this? Because I don't come across a lot of people who have dominance in all 5. So I also want to make my case here. You know, some face readers might disagree and be like, no, he's not dominant in all 5, but here's my case. So what I'm going to do is give you a little preemptive prompt here. I'm going to list off the elements and the features that relate to them, and I want you to pay attention to, as you look at the pictures of Brad Pitt, the visual dominance they hold. And so before I dive into that, I also want to say one of the ways you can kind of tell, like a little alarm is going off that a person might be balanced in all 5 is when you look at a person and you're a little stuck in terms of what's actually dominant, because a big piece of face reading is visual dominance. It's a visual art. You have to look and see what leaps out. So Brad Pitt, yes, of course, the man is stunning. He's found attractive by men and women. Men want to be him, women want to date him. But given that, I looked at his face and thought, what's actually dominant? And it was quite a bit. It was like all of the metrics started to be hit. And so again, if you're looking at someone's face and you can't totally pinpoint what's dominant, they might be balanced on all 5. Maybe, and you got to do a little digging. But here's my case. Fire relates to anything pointy features of any kind, and where we see triangular shapes show up. So it's also seen in wrinkling and dimples. So Brad Pitt, if you look at his eyes, got the triangular shaped hooded eyes, those are points. The bottom bridge of the nose comes to a point. The tip of the nose is somewhat pointy. He's got some points in the eyebrows. He's got points at the edges of the mouth. And we all have some, right? But some are more accentuated and more sharp. And he's also got the dimple. That's an attention fire marker. So there's the fire metrics. Earth is seen in the dominance of the mouth. A full lower lip, a full upper lip, or both. But dominance in the mouth means earth. That's the key earth element feature. The secondary place we'll see it is in the fleshiness of the face, where there's some plumpness and yin. So Brad Pitt is a very lean person. He's got very low body fat, but he's also got full, plump cheeks without being overly hollowed out and overly chiseled. So this is what we would call healthy earth. Then metal. Metal is characterized by big open spaces with not a lot of interruption. There's kind of a sheen and shiny-like quality to the skin. And then with metal, you're also going to see the big open spaces that's the big one, but classically what they say about metal is if a person is found mainstream attractive and that's a common thread with them, they carry a lot of metal. And again, it's obvious Brad Pitt carries a lot of metal. And then wood. Wood is seen in the brow bone, the dominance of the eyebrows, and the jawline. Again, Brad Pitt carries this in spades. And that last element, the wood, I want to focus on a bit more. I'm not going to talk about all of the elements because he's dominant in all five. I'd be here for an hour. So I want to focus on this one because this one has direct ties to his Jing expression. Jing, for review, is our genetic expression, our ancestral energy, the genetic instinctual codes we carry deep in our DNA that are being expressed in the world, consciously and subconsciously. So the wood element, the strong jawline, the eyebrows, and the brow bone have direct ties to Jing expression. And that's where I want to talk about this a bit with him. If you look at this picture when he's younger, you can see these hairs showing up right here, what they call the unibrow. I don't know if that's the full expression of what it looks like, if that's been trimmed. In his later years, doesn't have it. Maybe he shaves it, waxes it, gets electrolysis. Who knows? He's in Hollywood. He's probably doing something. But when we see that, that's a surplus of wood. Wood, when we see strong wood features, we want to think hormonal response for a couple reasons. One is channel theory. All of this stuff that I talk about, it's Chinese medicine. And all of these elemental rhythms and symbols that we see in the face have direct ties to organs and meridian pathways, what they call acupuncture pathways on the body. So every channel in the body, the lung channel, the liver channel, the stomach channel, the spleen channel, they all have internal pathways, like internal geographies, and then eventually they externalize on the skin and traverse the outside of the body. The liver and gallbladder system are regulated by wood. The liver meridian has an internal pathway, but when it externalizes, it shows up below the pecs, goes down the torso on both sides. So bilaterally on both men and women, all channels have bilateral components, both sides present. But it goes down the torso, wraps around the sex organs, goes down the front of the legs and out to the big toe. That section where it wraps around the sex organs is the key. This is why the liver meridian, the wood element, and strong jawlines and eyebrows, this is why it has ties to sex drive in both men and women. When we see those strong features there, that means that channel has a lot of energy moving through it. And in terms of aging, when we have appropriate energy moving through the sexual geography of our body, this is what allows us to age well. So this is why keeping testosterone high for men and doing hormonal work with functional medicine doctors in both men and women is optimal for longevity and aging. So you can see how well Brad Pitt is aging, and that's pointing to that strong liver meridian that shows up through the face, through the jawline and the eyebrows. So there's some congruency there in terms of how Brad Pitt is aging, but that's something to pay attention to. And the last way I can kind of paint this picture is they've done these studies where they take heterosexual women and they have them look at a series of male faces, anywhere from 5 to 10 faces, and they have about 10 to 15 seconds to pick out the most attractive faces just based off of instinct and shooting from the hip. And it's like 95+% of women end up picking the men with the really dominant, wide, structured jaws. And again, what that points to is we all face read, whether we know it or not, consciously, subconsciously, we're all reading faces. And part of our instinctual biology is to identify the markers in people that have good genes, that are healthy, have good sex hormones, because humans want to breed ideally with the healthiest stock to make the healthiest offspring. So again, we see these metrics, and what that means for Brad Pitt, though, in terms of 5 elements, he's got a lot to work with. But in terms of the wood metrics, strength training, having creativity, expression, circulating sexual energy appropriately, all those things have to be online for the wood metrics to be fulfilled. Now, the other place you can see the wood metrics show up in him is in his physique. Brad Pitt, whether he was in Thelma and Louise, Fight Club, Troy, doesn't matter. Across the board, through all of his ages, the man stays lean. He stays below 15% body fat all the time, which means, and I know from reading about him, he doesn't work out insanely hard and doesn't do these things unless he's getting ready for a role, which means he just has good jing. When our liver system and those pathways around the genitals move well, when that energy circulates well, we're going to have good metabolic function. We metabolize fat well. We keep inflammation low. This is why men, if their testosterone gets too low, they have a lot of body fat and risk for heart disease and a bunch of other things. So Again, we can see those wood metrics show up. And for anyone on a fitness journey, if you've lost weight and worked out hard and start building muscle, by default, you are revving up the wood metrics in your body, and eventually it is going to show in your face, either through body fat reduction and the jaw getting stronger, or testosterone and hormonal levels will actually go up, and the bones continue to shift and move as we age, depending on our lifestyle and what we engage. So, to wrap this all up, he's also got sparkling peach luck. And you can see that. Let me rewind a little bit. For review, fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. These are 5 phases or rhythms. And each of these elements carries a specific type of luck. If you're dominant in certain features, typically we're going to lean and plug into one of these types of luck because luck is good. We need that grace and that opportunity for things to come to us in kind of synchronistic ways. So that being said, the pinnacle expression of peach luck is something called sparkling peach luck, what they call the fire luck, because luck in and of itself relates to the fire element or the fire energy. So you can use any of these lucks. There's 5 different kinds, but what they say is the fire one is kind of the pinnacle one that we're all kind of aiming for. Some of us might get there, some of us might not, but you can still use the other ones. But the big umbrella, right, is the fire. Fire is what encapsulates everything. So he's got the pinnacle expression of this. You'll see this in a look of mischief. The person looks like they could get into some shit. They look like a practical joker, or they do practical jokes. But they also have this twinkle and charm. Charisma, having that charm, having that glowing charisma, that magnetic quality, that all relates to fire energy, which Brad Pitt carries in spades. This is incredibly conducive for people in the public eye, whether you're a politician, whether you're in public relations, or a movie star. So where you can see this kind of like show up even more is where Brad Pitt gets his cult following from his roles. He's known for a lot of roles. He's a very good actor. Lots of good movies that he's been in. But where people love Brad Pitt is when he gets to be funny. 12 Monkeys is a great example from the 90s, where it's starting with Bruce Willis, time travel movie. It's very cool. But he plays a Looney Tune in a psycho ward, basically, and he ad-libs a lot of the role. And he's got like one crazy, wily eye. He's hysterical, like really funny. It's also what separated him in his career from Pretty Boy in Hollywood to this kid can actually act. The next one is Tyler Durden in Fight Club. So he's an irreverent, wily, kind of crazy, funny, energetic character playing to those fire rhythms. And then the other one that you can see it is in Snatch with Guy Ritchie, the Guy Ritchie movie. So he plays a gypsy, and he's what they call a piker. He's got a blend of like English, Irish accent, and you can't understand him. A lot of that role was ad-libbed too. So spontaneity and ad-libbing and being free-form improvisation, that's all fire energy. And those movies are where Brad Pitt got like huge cult followings. Basically, where he got to accentuate that sparkling mischief peach luck thing in his movies. So again, this is where we can kind of see the congruency in life terrain and whatnot. But these are the big things that I would be talking to Brad Pitt about. And I would be going down a list with him saying, you're dominant in all 5. First of all, tell me what that's like. How do you do that? And then let's go through all of the rhythms and which ones are you touching? And you're going to have to touch all of them most likely. And if you're not, how's that working out? And then, from there we build out lifestyle augmentation. So in any case, that's what I've got for Brad Pitt today. If you've got questions, please put them down below. And as always, thanks for your time.